The woman they turned into a monster. Medusa's true story. They told her story as if she were a monster, a creature cursed by the gods, bringing death with nothing but a single glance. But the truth is far darker and far more human. Medusa, once a young woman whose beauty stirred envy even among the gods, a devoted priestess of Athena, a name whispered across distant shores, until the desire of a god and the wrath of a goddess changed her fate forever. This is the story that re-examines the woman the legends called a monster, to reveal who she truly was. This is the true story Medusa deserves.
The fall of a girl, the rise of a legend. A girl who lived before the curse. Medusa was not born a monster. Before every myth, before every curse, before every lie told by heroes and written by poets, she was simply a girl, a priestess, a daughter, a woman growing inside the disciplined, sacred walls of Athena's temple. She believed in the gods. She believed in sacred vows. She believed the world was fair as long as people remained pure. But none of that would save her. Medusa's story did not begin with power. It began with innocence. And innocence is exactly what the world was preparing to take away. Athena's gaze and a future unseen. Medusa grew to become the most devoted priestess in Athena's temple. Her beauty was spoken of across cities, though she never sought such attention. Devotion was her shield, faith her identity. Every day she polished Athena's marble floors, carried offerings, prayed for wisdom, and swore purity to the goddess she admired. But everyone noticed her, except the one she served. Athena never praised her, never warned her, never protected her. The goddess of wisdom saw everything, except the suffering that was about to fall upon her most loyal servant. At least, that's what Medusa believed. The day the god who rules the sea arrived. One evening, as the temple's torches flickered and the last light of the sun faded, Poseidon appeared. Not as a gentle god, not as the ruler of seas, but as a force that did not care for devotion, holiness, or purity of sacred walls. He wanted Medusa, and gods always got what they wanted. The temple became a prison. The goddess's statue became a silent witness. And Medusa, the girl who had done nothing but serve, became a victim. Her cries echoed through pillars. Athena did not appear. No miracle came. And in the aftermath of that horror, Medusa's life split in two. Before the gods, after the gods. The punishment that made no sense. Athena returned, but she did not punish Poseidon. Gods rarely punish gods. Instead, she punished Medusa, the victim, the girl who had served her, the girl whose tears still stained the temple floor. Athena's rage came down like a storm. Her hair twisted into living serpents. Her eyes began to carry death itself. Let the world fear the sight of the one who defiled my temple. That was the goddess's judgment. Not justice, not reason, vengeance. And Medusa became the thing that would haunt her for eternity. A curse worse than death. The curse was not just ugliness, it was isolation, it was exile, it was the inability to ever be touched, seen, or loved again. Her eyes, once filled with hope, now held the power to turn any living being into stone, Her breath echoed with magic she could not control. Her shadow alone made men tremble. Medusa had been transformed into a monster the world would fear, but she never stopped being the girl who never deserved any of it. The exile begins. Athena cast her out to a distant island, a barren wasteland surrounded by stormy seas. No ships anchored there. No travelers survived long enough to tell the truth. She was alone, completely. And in that isolation, her story was rewritten by anyone who needed a monster. The myth begins to twist. Cities whispered lies, bards reshaped her tragedy, men exaggerated her power. Children whispered her name as a threat. Medusa was no longer a victim. She had become a bedtime horror story, and no one asked for her version. The storm of a legend. By the time her name reached kings and heroes, the world no longer remembered she was once a woman, a priestess, a believer. The story was set, and the tragedy had only begun.
The Gorgon in the Shadows, Medusa's life in exile. A land where even gods did not bother to look. The island she was banished to was not a home. It was a graveyard the gods abandoned. Rocks carved by ancient storms, cliffs untouched by sunlight, winds that carried the voices of the dead. Medusa walked this land alone, every step echoing the truth. She no longer belonged to the world she once served. The monster they created, the woman they forgot. Far from the island, her story changed. Not one version mentioned her suffering. Not one mentioned the god who harmed her. Not one mentioned she was innocent. It was easier to vilify her, easier to blame her, easier to ignore the truth. And humans always take the easier path. Silence, survival, and the price of being alive. Survival was her only companion. Her hair hissed through the night, a constant reminder of what she had become. Her eyes were weapons she never chose. Her body a prison she could not escape. Animals turned to stone. Even the brave did not last long. Medusa lived surrounded by statues, some with faces frozen in fear, others twisted with regret. All of them once alive, all of them now reminders of a curse she never wanted. The whispers that traveled across the world. Rumors grew like wildfire. The woman with deadly eyes, the snake-haired demon, the cursed queen of a forbidden island. Kings took interest, warriors sharpened their blades, and every new story added another layer to her supposed monstrosity. Her humanity disappeared behind the fiction. The first hunters and the woman who refused to die. The day came when hunters arrived, not heroes, not noble men, just fame-seekers chasing legends. They thought she was simple prey. They were wrong. Medusa fought not out of hate, but out of pure instinct to survive. One by one, the hunters became statues, their final expressions forever frozen in shock. And Medusa cried for every one of them. A hermit queen of a dead land. Years passed. Time became a blur. Medusa was no longer living, she was enduring. The island became her kingdom, though she never sought power. It was a kingdom of silence, stone, and ghosts. And she was its reluctant queen. The hero the world was waiting for. In distant cities, another story was forming. A boy was growing into a hero destined to seek glory, a hero destined to kill her. His name
was Perseus. Long before he set sail, Medusa's death was already written. Before the hero arrived, the tragedy was already set. The gods had made their decision. Medusa's story would end in blood. A hero would rise, a legend would be born, and a woman would be erased.
The last night of the Gorgon, the tragedy and the legacy. Perseus did not choose this battle. The gods chose it for him. They handed him divine weapons, divine protection, and divine instructions. This was not bravery. This was not honor. It was execution. Medusa's last night on Earth. The night before her death was unnaturally quiet. The island held its breath. Even the snakes in her hair calmed. Medusa felt something she hadn't felt in years. A strange, heavy stillness, as though fate itself was walking toward her. Perseus enters the land of the dead. Perseus arrived at dawn. He saw the statues, men who once tried to kill her. To him, they were proof of her monstrosity. He did not question why they came. He did not wonder what she endured. He came to complete a mission. Invisible beneath Hades' helmet, shielded by Athena's reflection, empowered by Hermes' speed, Medusa never stood a chance. The strike that changed myth forever. Medusa was asleep. For the first time in years, she was defenseless. Perseus did not look her in the eyes. He did not face her directly. He used Athena's mirrored shield and struck. Her story ended before she even understood the battle had begun. The blood that birthed legends. From her blood sprang two beings, Pegasus, the winged horse, Chrysaor, the warrior born with a golden blade. Even in death, she brought life. Even in tragedy, she created legends. A weapon forged from a woman's suffering. Perseus took her head. Her eyes still held their power. Her expression still carried the pain of everything she had endured. He used her as a weapon, as a trophy, as proof of his heroism. Medusa, once a priestess, was reduced to a tool. The goddess who created the monster takes the trophy. Athena took Medusa's head and placed it on her shield, the Aegis. The goddess who cursed her now used her face for protection. Her pain became someone else's power. Her suffering became divine armor. The irony was cruel, the injustice eternal. Death was not the end. Stories continued to warp her truth. Her name was invoked to stare children, inspire warriors, and warn women. But her true story was buried beneath centuries of retellings. Yet myths do not stay silent forever. The woman they called a monster. In the end, Medusa was never the monster. She was the victim of gods, the scapegoat of poets, the tool of heroes. Her story is a warning, a tragedy, and a revolution all at once. And now, for the first time in centuries, we look at her again, not with fear, but with truth.